Vertex form of a quadratic equation. So you already know the standard form of a quadratic equation is going to be ax squared plus bx plus c, where you have the leading coefficient a, and you have a constant c, and you have this middle coefficient here, b. There's another form called the vertex form. Because if you look at the standard form, there's no easy way to figure out the vertex and to graph this. It's a lot easier to graph when you have the vertex form. Well, that is if you're not just using a calculator to graph it. Vertex form is a times x minus h, and we square that and then add k. Now before we move on to what h and k are, let's look at a. This is actually the same a from here. If you convert something from standard form to vertex form, this a will be the same. And now let's look at h and k. So h is going to be the x value of the vertex. So h is going to be x value of vertex, and then k, sorry, I know these colors are matching, but these are not the same thing. And then we have k, which is going to be the y value of the vertex. So that means the point h comma k is going to be our vertex. And if you look here, you can see we are subtracting h and adding k. So if you remember from our transformations of parent functions, you know if something is on the outside of the equation, it is going to affect it in the vertical axis, the y-axis. And if you add it, it'll go up, and if you are subtracting, it'll go down. But if you're on the inside, where you're affecting your x before it goes through the function, then if you subtract, it'll move to the right, and adding will move to the left. So that's why we have to subtract our x value here, because if we want it, let's say we had the x value of 5. If we want our vertex, it's going to start at 0, 0, the origin. If we want it to be at 5, we can't add 5 because that'll move it to the left, and then it'll be negative 5. So instead we have to subtract 5, and that'll move it to the right. And then if, let's say we had like 3 for our y value. Because this is on the outside, remember your transformations, this is going to go. This one, there isn't any trick here, it's just if you add, it goes up, and if you subtract, it goes down. So that's why we just have an addition symbol there. So now let's look at how we would get to vertex form, starting with standard form. So we want to go from standard to vertex. So we have y equals 2x squared minus 4x plus 5. And we could just do some algebraic manipulation to try to put it in this form, but there is a simpler way. So to use this simpler way, we first have to find a simple equation. So if you remember the quadratic formula, that's going to be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and then we divide all of that by 2a. But if we take out this whole radical here, this entire part, just delete it, then we will be left with negative b divided by 2a. And this is going to be the x value of our vertex. And we know the x value of our vertex is going to be h. So now we know how to solve for one of the pieces, so let's do that. So you can see our b value here is negative 4, and then our a value is 2. So negative times negative 4 is just going to be 4. And then we divide by 2 times a, 2 times 2 is going to be 4. So our h value is going to be 1. Now we have the x value of our vertex, but we still need to find k. We need the y value of our vertex. But here we actually have an equation for y. So we can just plug in 1 to solve for that. We have 2 times 1 squared, and then subtract 4 times 1, and then add 5. So 2 times 1 squared is 1. 2 times 1, that's going to be 2. And then negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And then we add 5. 2 minus 4, that's going to be negative 2. And then we add 5, that is going to be 3. So all of this is going to be 3. And we know this is going to be our k value. So I'm going to put it in blue. So now if I just clean this up a little bit. So we have h is equal to 1 and k is equal to 3. So our vertex would be 1, 3. But now we have all the parts to write this in vertex form. So it's going to be a, which is 2. We just use the same one from standard form. And then multiply by x minus our h value is 1, and then k is going to be 3. So the vertex form of 2x squared minus 4x plus 5 is going to be 2 times x minus 1 squared plus 3. Now what if we wanted to go the other direction? We start with vertex form and want to get to standard form. Here we have y is equal to 3 times x minus 4 squared minus 1. So to get to standard form, we simply just multiply this out and simplify. So x minus 4 squared. Let's start with that. So we know how to square a binomial. We'll start with x squared, and then we multiply these two together, which is negative 4 times x, so negative 4x. And we multiply that by 2. So that's going to be negative 8x. And then we do our second term here squared, which is negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. And remember, all of that is going to be multiplied by our a value, 3. So now let's distribute this 3. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times negative 8x, well, 3 times 8 is 24, so this is going to be negative 24x. And then 3 times 16, that is going to be 48. And then we subtract 1. So now all we need to do is subtract 1 from all this, so 3x squared minus 24x, and then add 48 minus 1, which is 47. So the standard form of 3 times x minus 4 squared minus 1 is going to be 3x squared minus 24x plus 47.